What's up bafflers, James here. Today we're going to be setting up OBS Studio. Now this video will set up OBS Studio from start to finish for recording. Now if you need to find something specific, see my pinned comment which will have all the timestamps for various parts of the video. So if you need to find something specific, then go ahead and click that. If you're just getting started with OBS, then watch the whole video. So let's get started. In this tutorial I'm going to be setting up recording for both desktop and game recording. So first up, let's do desktop recording. So what we need to do under sources is press add, then we need to select display capture. Now you can rename this to what you like. I'm just going to call it display capture. That does well for me. And then all you have to do is select the display. So if you've got a multiple monitor setup, then go ahead and select your display. I'm going to select display 1, and if you want to display the cursor, leave that ticked. If not, then untick that and then press OK. So we have our display capture set up. The next step we're going to do is set up a webcam. So this is kind of like a picture-in-picture setup. So what I'm going to be doing is situating the webcam in the top left corner. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and press add, then video capture device. You can rename this to whatever you like, then press OK. The first step is to go ahead and select Logitech, or in my case it's Logitech, but select your webcam. So whatever your webcam is, go ahead and select that, and then you should see your wonderful face in the little capture preview right there. Next up, you can go ahead and configure your video. Now yours will look different to mine. So in my webcam it's under advanced settings. I've got a range of image quality options. Now I've got exposure, so if my webcam's too dark I can go ahead and adjust that. And another popular one is white balance. So say if your video is looking a little bit warm, if it's looking a bit yellow, or maybe it's looking a bit blue, then you can go ahead and change the white balance so it looks nice and accurate. So once you're finished, go ahead and press save, and then your configured webcam is ready to go. Okay, so next up is resolution and FPS. So what we need to do, you can select device default if it looks right and you don't want to change anything, you can leave it on default, or if you want to adjust it, go ahead and select custom. So under resolution you get a few different options. Now some of these are obviously higher quality than others, but another thing worth mentioning is that certain options, say if I select 1280 by 960, it will be a 4:3 video footage, so it won't be widescreen. So depending on what you want to use your footage for, you may prefer a 4:3 ratio or a widescreen ratio like this. On my webcam it does actually crop it a little bit, so it's worth bearing that in mind. For me, I just like to use the 1280 by 960, that works right for me, but select what works for you. The next up is FPS. Now it will automatically match the output FPS. However, I'm just going to select 30 for now because that's the maximum FPS my webcam can do. If you're recording 60 FPS footage, you want to select either 60 or 30. Okay, so video format, I'm just going to leave that on any. Color space, I'm going to change this from default to 709. And then on color range, I'm going to change that from default to full. Now what this will do, it will provide a full range of color for your webcam. So it will appear, all colors will appear a lot more accurate, which is what we like to see. Buffering, I'm going to disable this because I don't need buffering. And then if you need to flip your camera around to have it upside down, then by all means you can do that. However, I don't need that obviously. Then I'm going to leave audio output mode, capture audio only, and leave that unticked. Finally, let's press OK. Now our webcam is on our screen, and as you can see, if you drag your webcam, if you just literally just click on the video, you can drag it around and move it to whatever position you like. Now for me, what I'm going to do, I'm going to place it into the top left corner. So I'm going to just press over this little red box here, and now you can see it's making, I can drag it around and increase or decrease the size. Bearing in mind you don't want your preview to be too big, otherwise it will cover up your whole video. No one wants that. If you want to crop your video footage to just show your face and not your entire room, all you have to do is just hold down the Alt key and then highlight over one of the boxes. My phone just went off, apologies. And then you can adjust your video so it's the perfect frame. For me, I don't need to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and press Alt and then bring these back out again. You can do this for the top and the bottom ones as well if you want to crop like that. But yeah, I don't need to crop, but it's worth mentioning. So there we go. We now have our webcam set up. So currently we have our display capture set up and we have our video capture, which is the webcam setup. Finally, what we need to do is set up the game capture. So go ahead and press Add and then Game Capture. I'm just going to leave it on that name for now. You can change it to whatever you like. Okay, so this will vary depending on what kind of game you want to play. For me, I seem to play pretty much all my games are full screen. So what OBS will do, it will automatically capture any full screen application. However, if this doesn't work for your game, what you can do, you can go ahead, go into Steam, start up your game, and what you can do, you can capture a specific window. If you have two graphics cards, if you're doing very well and you have two graphics cards, then you can go ahead and select SLI/Crossfire capture mode. It may decrease the performance, but if you've got a fast CPU, you shouldn't really notice any difference. Then I'm going to leave force scaling disabled. And there's other options here, so if you want to allow transparency, but I don't need any of those options for here. If you don't want to capture your cursor in your game, then unselect that box. For me, I'm just going to leave that selected for now. Hook rate, leave that on normal, and then press OK. So now we have our game capture set up. Now, what I've done right here is I've got these out of order, so what I need to do is drag the game capture down here. So the video capture, which is the webcam, will always stay on the top. If you leave this on the top, this will mean that nothing will overlap it. It will always be above either your desktop or your game footage. Also, it's worth mentioning, if you don't want to use any of these functions, you can go ahead and just press the I and it will hide it. The game capture, you can leave that turned on because it will display your desktop until you start playing your game, and then it will just automatically use the game capture mode. So now we have our sources all set up and ready to go. Next up, onto the audio mixer. Okay, so on the audio mixer, I've got desktop audio, which will record anything either on my desktop or in game. Next up, I've got the mic and auxiliary, which you can see is moving around at the moment on the meter. However, if you're speaking into your microphone and nothing's happening down here, you've probably got the wrong microphone selected. So what you have to do is go over to the cog right here and go to properties, and then select the microphone that you want to use. Once you've done that, press OK, and then hopefully everything should be working. And then finally, the video capture device. If you have a built-in microphone in your webcam, then you should see this moving around. I've actually disabled the microphone in my webcam, but what you want to do, if you're using one or the other, you want to select either one of the options. You want to mute either your microphone or mute your webcam microphone, because you don't want the two at once. It will sound all weird. So you can adjust the desktop audio, the mic and auxiliary audio levels, and make sure that it's not too loud. However, I have a top tip right here. So what I'm going to do, if you're planning to edit your video, this is a really good tip. So what I'm going to do is click this little icon here, the cog icon, and then go to Advanced Audio Properties. Now what you can see in this window, we've got three different types of audio. So we have our desktop audio, our mic and auxiliary, and our video capture device. Now each audio is in one audio track. So we have our desktop audio track, our mic audio track, and if you're using your webcam, you'll have a track for that as well. Now what you want to do, it'll probably by default have all of these selected. So let's go ahead and just untick all of them for now. So all these tracks, make sure they're all empty first. So what I'm going to do is select track number 1 for desktop audio, and then for my microphone I'm going to be selecting track number 2. So what this will do, when you're editing, it will have each audio on a separate audio track, so you can adjust the volume and EQ afterwards, which for me is really useful. It's not going to blend it all together, and this is really good, especially if you're playing a game and you've got sound effects. If you use this option, what you can do, you can adjust your volume in your editing software. So I've got some example footage right here. As you can see, we have some loud music playing in the clip. So let's go ahead and that. So this is an audio test. So as you can tell, so my voice is way too quiet and the music is way too loud. So what we can do, we can go ahead, right click, do unlink. Then what we can do, we can go over to Effect Controls, select this clip right here, turn the animation feature off, and then reduce the volume by 20 dB. And let's play it back now. So this is an audio test. So as you can tell, you probably can't hear me at the moment. Well, you can hear me at the moment. So as you can tell, it's working a lot nicer now. What OBS usually does is mix the mic audio and the desktop audio together, meaning that if one of them is too loud, there's not really much you can do about it. Whereas now, we've got them on separate audio tracks. So now I've adjusted the background music level, our clip is now usable. So we have our scenes, our sources, and our audio mixer set up. Next up is the settings. Let's go ahead and click settings right here, and we have a few different options down here. First of all is general, and here's mainly to do with the interface. So if you want to change your theme to something like this, which actually looks pretty cool, you can go ahead and change that. I'll just change it back to default for now. If you want to show a confirmation dialog when you're stopping recording, you can go ahead and select that option. Next up, we need to go over to output and change the output mode from simple to advanced, and then we've got lots more features to play with. Okay, so under the recording tab, change the type to standard. The next step is to set our recording path. Now this is just a recording location that our video will be saved to. So we'll go over to browse and just select the folder that you want your video to be saved in. So I'm going to go to this PC and videos and then press select folder. And as you can see, it's filled out the recording path for us, which is very handy. Now I just leave this unticked, generate file name without space. However, if you're encountering any problems, then you might want to try that out. Okay, so recording format. Now this is different depending on what video editor you use. I use Premiere Pro, and only certain recording formats work with it. So I just select MP4 because MP4 works best for me. The only problem with MP4 is it will give you a bit of a warning down here saying that if you get like a blue screen of death or a power loss, then your footage will not be recoverable. However, if you select FLV, it won't work in Premiere Pro. So make sure you do select MP4. The next step is to select our audio track. So remember from earlier when we were in our advanced audio properties, we selected audio track number 1 and audio track number 2. So number 1 was our desktop audio and number 2 was our microphone. So make sure you have those selected and keep all the other boxes unticked. Next up is the encoder. Now you have several different options on here depending on what graphics card you have. You may have an NVIDIA or an AMD option. Okay, so I'll start off with the X264 option, and then afterwards I'll show you the settings for NVIDIA. So for the rate control, you can just leave this on CBR and then change the bitrate to 5000 kilobits per second. This will give you a much crisper, cleaner video quality. If you're running low on space or you're planning to record a really long video, what you can do, you can adjust this to something like 3500 kilobits per second. It won't look quite as nice as 5000 kilobits, but it will save a lot more space. Next up, I'm going to leave use custom buffer size unticked, keyframe interval on 0, CPU usage, I'll keep this on very fast, it works very well for me. Then profile, I'm going to select high, so this will give you the highest quality recording, which is what we want. And then for tune, just leave this on none. Finally, the X264 options, just leave this empty, don't type anything in there, and we should be ready to go. So once you've finished changing your settings, go ahead and press apply, and then press OK, and there we go. So if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can go ahead and select the NVIDIA NVENC H264 new encoder. Now just leave rescale output unselected and this empty. Okay, so on rate control, go ahead and select CBR for constant bitrate, and then change the bitrate from 2500 kilobits per second to 5000 kilobits per second. This will give you a lot more higher quality footage. If you want to save disk space, go ahead and select 3500. Keyframe interval, keep that on 0. So for the preset, what I'm going to do is change quality to max quality because we like max quality. Profile high, keep that on high. Disable look ahead. So if you're recording really fast action-packed games, then you might want to leave this enabled, the Psycho visual tuning. It will help the video cope with the motion. However, there is a downside. It does use your GPU. So if you're using a game that uses very high amounts of your graphics card, then you might want to disable that. Finally, for GPU, leave that on 0, then max B frames, select 2, and then go ahead and press apply, and then OK. Okay, so go back to settings, go back to output, and next up what we're going to do is go on to the audio tab. In the audio tab, we have all our different selections, so yours will have a different name. I've called mine Windows/Game Audio and Mic. So you can go ahead and rename these if you haven't done so. And I've changed the audio bitrate to 320. This is the highest bitrate available. If you don't need that sort of quality, you can reduce it slightly. However, it will impact the audio quality. So I'm leaving it on 320 kilobits per second. Finally, let's go over to replay buffer, and I've disabled replay buffer. And we've now completed our output settings for recording. Okay, so the next step is audio. Now what you want to do is select the sample rate. So by default it's on 44.1 kilohertz. However, if you want a slightly higher quality, I think that's CD quality. If you want DVD quality audio, then go ahead and select 48 kilohertz. For channels, what you want to do is select stereo. Even if you're using a mono microphone, your game footage or desktop audio will sound much better in stereo. Or if you're doing a very fancy video, you might want to select one of the surround sound settings. However, I'm just going to use stereo. Next up, we need to select our devices. So for desktop audio, I've selected speakers. So this is the audio that's coming through my headphones. Then mic and auxiliary audio. This is my microphone that I'm using, so I've selected microphone. However, if you need to use a different microphone, or if you do need to use different speakers or headphones, then go ahead and select that from the drop down box. Everything else you can leave as is. Okay, so the next step is to go over to video. Now this is our resolution for the video. So for me, I'm using 1920 by 1080. This will give me full HD OBS quality. So what you need to do is change it to the resolution of your monitor. If you're not sure what your monitor's resolution is, go over to your desktop, right click, go to display settings, and then it will be under display resolutions. As you can see, mine is 1920 by 1080. Now I'm keeping both of these resolutions exactly the same because I don't want to scale my footage. I just want it to be exactly the same as I recorded it. For the downscale filter, I've selected bilinear because I don't really need to scale my footage. Look, it's exactly the same, so I don't need to worry about that. However, if you are scaling your footage, I would recommend either bicubic or, for the best quality, Lanczos sharpened scaling. Finally, we need to set up our FPS values. So as you remember, my webcam is recording in 30 frames per second. However, your webcam may be recording in 25 frames per second, for example. So for me, mine is using 30 frames per second. However, I want to record my video at 60 frames per second. This is double my webcam's FPS, so that will work fine. If you're using a slightly different FPS value, say if you're recording in 30 and your webcam's 25, it will not look very nice. So what you want to do is use either exactly the same FPS as your webcam, or use double the FPS of your webcam. So for me, I'm going to be using 60, which is a nice smooth video footage. Next up is hotkeys. So to set up a hotkey, all you need to do is click on the box next to the field and do the hotkey that you want to use. So say for example I wanted to use Ctrl+R, it's done it already. I just have to press it in and it types it in for me. Then say for stop, you might want to use Ctrl+S. If you change your mind about any of these hotkeys, don't just press backspace because then it will think that you want to use backspace as a hotkey. What you need to do is press the clear icon right here and it will get rid of the hotkeys that you don't want to use. Finally, on advanced, now this is pretty important. I noticed fairly recently that my video colours were looking a little bit washed out and some of the colours weren't quite right, which is obviously not what we want. So in the video section, change the colour format to NV12. The colour space needs to be changed from 601 to 709, and then to get the full colour range for our videos, change it from partial to full, and trust me, this will make a world of a difference. Your colours will be popping and it will just look really nice. So now we've set up all of our settings, what we need to do is just press apply and then OK, and now our OBS is now finally ready to go. So what I always recommend to do is test footage, test, because before you do a really long video and it's not working correctly, make sure that you do some test footage beforehand, make sure it works with your video editor and all that kind of stuff. So once you do your full recording, it will be ready to go. So to start recording, go ahead and press start recording. Easy. So let's go ahead and do some test footage. Hooray, we're now recording. And you can see me in the top left corner right here. And you can hear me from my microphone, and at the moment it's using the display capture. So what I'm going to do is start playing some music through here to test that the audio is working.
Can I be what I said, do it better than anybody who's really trying to be my fan, but come hang out with it.
So as you can tell, the desktop audio is working perfectly. Next up, let's go ahead and try a game. So what I'm going to do is go over to Steam. So what will happen is that it's now changed from that window to the game capturing. Because this is a full screen game application, it's now started to record this as it's over the desktop capture. Now unfortunately I'm on a different user account, so I don't have my City Skylines progress, which is a bit annoying, but we'll just start afresh. So you should be able to hear the game audio, you can hear the background music. And here we have it, our game is now launched. You should be able to hear the background audio as well as my mic audio, and I should be somewhere around here in the corner, which is exactly what we need. Awesome. So once we go back to desktop, it will revert back from game capture to the regular display capture. And here we go, we're back in display capture. So it's now recording our desktop. Now the reason why I like this is just because it's seamless. It goes from game capture to display capture. But like I said, make sure you got these in the right order. Make sure you got video capture at the top, then game capture, and then finally display capture at the bottom. So when you want to play a game, it will work automatically. So yeah, that footage looks awesome. I'm really impressed about how that turned out, so that's really cool. So if you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button for any more of this sort of thing. Don't forget to subscribe and ding so you don't miss a thing. Don't forget to follow me at Baffle Channel. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat and TikTok. If you have any questions, let me know down below. For all the latest, head over to baffle.cc. Thanks for watching and have a baffling day.